Today we're going to look at 3 topics during Nutrition Update. So these are all very topical at the moment, and we'll be focusing on the findings from the National Pupils Survey and looking at some findings from a recent task force report on nutrition and development and how this relates to behaviour change in the long run as well. I'm not sure you've heard of the findings from the National Pupils Survey. That was part of the Healthy Eating Week that BNF hosted early in the month, which attracted over 3,000 schools around the UK and representing over 1.2 million students taking part in this national school initiative. As part of the Healthy Eating Week, we conducted this survey, the largest of its kind, and there were over 27,500 students which took part in the survey. It provided a very interesting snapshot of what students actually know and behave in the aspects of healthy eating, cooking and food and farming. So in this presentation we'll go through some of these findings, and hopefully that will set the scene for a behaviour change that we'll cover later on. So just to start with, our findings, the National Pupils Survey, have generated some very interesting press early in the month, covered by the BBC News. We've got ITV, the Daily Mail and also the Times as well. So we've attracted 300 million hits all across all these websites from these press materials. So it's actually very interesting because most of them focus on how a third of primary school children think that cheese comes from plants. 1 in 10 secondary school children believe that tomatoes grow under the ground. And nearly 1 in 5 primary school children say that fish fingers come from chicken. So these were very useful headlines to grab attention from people around the UK, and also the activities during Healthy Eating Week. But surely there are some very interesting findings. That's why we're going to cover these today, and to make sure that we understand the pupils here actually know how they're behaving, and hopefully we'll be able to match their gaps in knowledge and provide some useful resources to boost their knowledge and behaviour in healthy eating, cooking, where food comes from. So to start with, we've got 5 a day. So over 3/4 of primary school children and nearly 9 out of every 10 secondary school pupils know that people should consume 5 or more portions of fruit and vegetables each day. So that's the national recommendation, 5 a day. However, that did not translate into behaviour, with most of the pupils eating 4 or less portions of fruit and vegetables. And most of them don't think that frozen fruit and vegetables count towards 5 a day. Next one, we've got the Eat Well plate, which is the UK's official healthy eating guide, as we all know. Encouragingly, most primary students, they recognise the Eat Well plate. However, when asked about the correct proportions, half of them did not know proportions represented by the Eat Well plate. We know that it's very important not to skip breakfast and to have it every single day. However, there's an alarming number of children who do not eat breakfast every day, according to our survey findings, and this increases with the age of the children as well. On the day of the survey, 8% of primary school children said they hadn't eaten breakfast that morning, and that increased to nearly a quarter of 11 to 14-year-olds, and then over to a third of 14 to 16-year-olds. That just provides a very alarming snapshot of what's happening across the UK. For fish consumption, there are national recommendations that children and adults should consume at least 2 portions of fish each week, one of which should be oily. However, around 1 in 6 students in the UK who took part in the survey never ate fish, and around the same number only said they ate fish twice a week. So there's some scope of intervention considering the health benefits of including fish as part of a healthy, varied diet. We know that children and young people are recommended to be active for at least 60 minutes each day. For primary children, they are more likely to describe themselves as active, and this proportion decreases in secondary school. So we know that the older the students, the less likely they are active. And this is consistent with other findings in national surveys, with self-reported activity levels amongst young people decreasing with age. The situation is actually much worse when activity is measured objectively using a piece of equipment called the accelerometer, people actually, they report themselves being more active than they actually are. So it's very important that we try to encourage them to be more active and know how serious the situation is. Looking at cooking, figures from the National Pupils Survey found that 1 in 5 pupils cook at home either every day or once a week. However, around 1 in 10 pupils never cooked at home. Encouragingly, most of the pupils actually, they want to cook more, and also they enjoy cooking, perhaps providing the resources and facilities and time as well for them to cook, and also the knowledge to apply the cooking skills at home as well. So looking at where food comes from, 1 in 5 primary school children told us that they never visited a farm. Well, that's actually around the same for secondary school pupils. So this may go partway to explaining the facts from the media headlines which were generated. Actually, a third of the primary students believe that pasta comes from animals, and almost 30% thought that cheese comes from plants, which is quite interesting to know. And these just provide you with some sort of background information to the behaviour and knowledge of students in the UK, and hopefully that will translate into some sort of supporting resources in behaviour change in the future. Looking at Healthy Eating Week itself, as I mentioned just now, we've attracted a lot of media interest and also interest from teachers around the UK to take part in our week, which is the first of its kind, and we hope to continue this in the future. Activity-wise, we have launched a series of events, including 2 competitions each day, a series of e-seminars including a cook-along, as well as a suite of new resources for 10 themes supporting the Eat Well plate, and 8 tips for healthy eating, which are the government tips to help us eat well. These are all available on the website, which are still freely available to download online. And we've also got our social networking trending on Twitter with the hashtag HEW13. If you're on Twitter, please feel free to search for that and have a look. So hopefully this will provide sort of background of how Healthy Eating Week evolved with the National Pupils Survey findings, and just to highlight some of the resources available as well. We're going to touch upon the findings from the latest Task Force report on nutrition and development, short and long-term consequences for health, published by the British Nutrition Foundation just a couple of weeks ago. The report was a culmination of a lot of efforts from scientists in the field, and that took a couple of years to publish. So that's quite a thick report, quite a scientific report as well. But today we're going to focus on several topics, looking at how weight before and during pregnancy and micronutrient intakes amongst women of childbearing age may have an effect on the short-term and long-term health consequences for themselves and for the baby's life in the future as well. So this report highlighted that the women's diet and lifestyle before and during pregnancy is very important, as we know. So first of all, looking at obesity rates, we know that the UK is facing a problem with high incidence of overweight obesity nationally for children and adults. Actually, around half of all the women of childbearing age in England are overweight or obese, and this can lead to health issues for children in later life. Having a healthy body weight is of paramount importance before and during pregnancy, and risk of the baby increases with increasing pregnancy weight, as shown in the graphs here. So we can see that having a healthy weight is of the lowest risk to the baby, and that's lowest risk for infant death. So complications relating to maternal obesity include preeclampsia, like high blood pressure, protein in the urine, leading to problems such as having a low birth weight child, so growth retarded baby we call it. Usually this sort of baby, they experience rapid growth after birth, and that will generate some problems in the future, a higher risk of being obese later on in the future, and also a higher risk for developing type 2 diabetes and other metabolic problems as well. On the other hand, if babies are born to obese women, they can also be excessive birth weight, which will increase the baby's risk of obesity later on in life as well. Obesity during pregnancy can also increase the risk for gestational diabetes, so diabetes during pregnancy, which may, first of all, increase the birth weight of the child, and also having long-term health consequences for both the mother and the baby as well, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes in the future. At the moment, pregnancy weight gain in the UK is actually not routinely monitored, so there is some scope of intervention for women of childbearing age, for example, to be of a healthy weight before and hopefully during pregnancy. And that's something that the government is actually looking at the moment to provide more guidance. People of overweight and obese mothers especially, they are also more likely to experience a higher risk of neurotube defects in their babies because they're less likely to take folic acid, which we all know is a very important supplement to reduce the risk of neurotube defects in the baby. And the current recommendation is to take a daily supplement of 400 micrograms. Obese mothers are also at an increased risk of vitamin D deficiency, which we'll look at in a couple of slides, and it's very important that they try to target this because vitamin D is particularly important for bone health. We're going to touch upon micronutrient intakes. This table shows the percentage of girls and women with intakes of vitamins and minerals from food sources below the lower recommended nutrient intakes, which we all know is LRMIs, abbreviated as. People are usually not having enough intakes from these micronutrients, and we can see that from the highlighted blocks here. Those are the micronutrients which are of particular importance, and also there are high proportions of women around the UK which are not having enough, with a particular focus for younger girls, actually aged 11 to 18 years. So these teenagers are at risk of micronutrient deficiency, and in fact we know that around 1 in 10 births in the UK are born to teenage girls. Well, to start with, quite shocking, but at the same time, because of the likelihood of them not having enough micronutrient intakes, they also have a higher risk of certain health implications for themselves and for their child as well. There was a study of pregnant teenagers, around 500 of them, in inner city London and Manchester, who reported anemia in 2 in 3 late pregnancies, and also low vitamin D levels in 1 in 5 of white teenage mums, pregnant mums, and that is more for mums of minority ethnic groups, and that's around half of them affecting. Vitamin deficiency, particularly as mentioned, has a long-term implication for bone health, and particularly for certain minority ethnic groups, they are less likely to take the supplement, and that's why they are more likely to be vitamin D deficient as well. There is also very low uptake of folic acid supplements. Only around 7% of teenagers take this before conception, which is understandable. However, even after they got pregnant, only half of them take the folic acid supplement. The current recommendation is to take the daily supplement up to 12 weeks. So this may have long-term implications on the likelihood of having neurotube defects for the baby. This particular population group also are also more likely to smoke. Their babies are more likely to have low birth weight as well, and these moms are also less likely to breastfeed, which is something to note. This group is also of an increased risk of postnatal depression, and there is therefore room for intervention and improvement, particularly in schools as well, speaking to teenage girls and equipping with knowledge and behaviour of what they need to do in the future. So as mentioned before, calcium and vitamin D are very important for bone health, and the report highlights that low vitamin D status is very common in the UK, particularly with minority ethnic groups, because of how the vitamin is synthesized in the skin. Vitamin D is provided by the diet, such as from oily fish like mackerel, salmon and sardines. However, there are only a small number of people, especially women in the UK, who regularly eat oily fish, around only 28% from the findings of a national survey. And the current recommendation is to take 10 micrograms of vitamin D each day, women of childbearing age, particularly pregnant and breastfeeding women, because of the increased needs of this vitamin D during this time, and also for members of minority ethnic groups to take this daily as well, just because of the less efficient production of vitamin D in the skin. And we also know that vitamin D supplementation is less likely to be taken by lower socio-economic groups as well. So we can see that there are some health inequalities in the society which we need to target. There's some recent press, actually, just a couple of weeks ago, highlighting the importance of iodine intake in pregnancy. Iodine is very important to develop the cognitive function of the baby, and deficiency in iodine can lead to stunted growth. And this has been highlighted to be the most preventable cause of learning disability. So it's quite easily rectified. However, not a lot of people have enough iodine intakes in the UK. There are natural sources of iodine in the diets. For example, sea fish, shellfish, and seaweed are rich sources, and milk as well in the UK. In some countries, iodine is added to salt in iodine-deficient areas, but not in the UK. So it's important to highlight the good sources of iodine and to encourage them to have it as part of a healthy diet. Looking at breastfeeding, we know that the national recommendation, actually international recommendation, is to breastfeed babies exclusively for the first 6 months of life. However, despite this, virtually all mums in the UK, more than 99%, report introducing other foods before 6 months. And this is often because they consider their babies to be hungry and not satisfied on breast milk alone. So there is definitely scope for intervention and for clearer advice to mothers and health professionals on how to support this. However, it's quite difficult because there's a lack of information, up-to-date information on the diet and nutrient intakes of infants, portion sizes, how weaning process should be like, and how the different textures should be introduced as well. So there's a gap between information provision and the actual knowledge of doing this. And these graphs just show that you can see that there's a decreasing rate of exclusive breastfeeding up to 6 months, and the increasing uptake of infant formula. So findings from the recommendation really, on the public health point of view, to have a healthy, varied diet and be active, as we all know, that's very important to be a healthy weight. Ideally avoid alcohol because that can cause direct impact to the baby, but if women choose to drink, only having 1 to 2 units each week. Don't smoke, that's quite obvious. Take a daily supplement of folic acid and vitamin D, which we've just talked about. Include some oily fish to provide a good source of the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids for the development of the baby. Include some iron-rich foods, which actually I think 2 days ago there were some press talking about the importance of iron to increase the likelihood of having a healthy birth weight for babies and to decrease the likelihood of anemia as well. So that's very important, and we know that meat is a very good source and a very bioavailable source as well, so readily available for the body to absorb. But non-meat sources also contribute to intake, and this will be enhanced by vitamin C consumption at the same meal occasion. There's also a very important public health message not to eat for two. Some of the mums out there, they believe that because I'm nurturing a growing baby, there's a need to eat more for the baby. There is only an increased energy requirement of around 200 calories during the 3rd trimester for pregnant mums, and for breastfeeding mums, that's only 300 calories per day. So you can see that the increase is actually quite minimal considering the increased needs. So it's very important that we think about this and not to have too much weight gain during pregnancy, talking to young girls especially, to get them prepared for later life. Also, an important message is to keep hydrated. So pregnant women are advised to drink around 300 millilitres more fluid each day. And for breastfeeding women, around 700 millilitres to 1.1 litres more fluid each day. And that's on top of the 6 to 8 glasses that they're recommended to drink, and of course more when they have been active and when the weather is hot as well. We've got some nice resources if you're interested to look into the area a bit further. We've got a nice question and answer pack which is available online, and we can follow this link to download it there. And also we've got a nice website, a dedicated website called nutritionforbaby.co.uk, which provides a sort of almost a month-by-month development of the baby, and also what pregnant moms should eat to meet the needs of the growing baby as well. And to promote our task force findings, we've got a healthy life and meal planner for women, which is available in your packs. And these are also available online, which you can download further copies as well. So it might be an interesting activity to do with your students. So going on to the last part of the presentation, we linked all these sections together because we believe that the results from the National Pupils Survey and the key facts from the task force report will set the context on changing behaviour, which is a crucial stage, particularly for school pupils and secondary. And it's very important in schools that we can equip them with the right knowledge and skills to elicit behaviour change for their health in the future as well. As mentioned earlier, around 1 in 10 pregnancies in the UK are from teenage girls, and that's why schools will play a particularly important role to target the needs of this group in the population as well. So we're going to look at different factors which affect behaviour change. First of all, socially, it's going to be helpful to engage with different people, particularly family and friends, to find active time together, and also of course to have meals as part of the sort of family time together as well. So involving people and friends and family socially can help to change behaviour, and also to talk about this sort of what they feel proud about, and also their weaknesses. Hopefully, this is all quite sort of perfect scenario, but you know, with more help and support, hopefully we can be able to do that. Particularly encouraging young people to do that as well. Psychologically, emotions and psychology, we know that can affect behaviour. So again, involving family and friends to help change this process is very important, and it's very important that we try to be realistic as well. Try to use trusted websites. I'm sure you all are looking at, you know, sort of websites from the British Nutrition Foundation, BBC Health, NHS Soil Choices, and also encourage students to go for these as well. Will be very useful. Diet and health is of very close association, and eating and drinking has a direct impact on nutritional well-being. It's very important to highlight factors which will help the body register food signals, and also to cut down on the portions of foods like crisp biscuits, as you were looking at sort of portion size control earlier as part of activity with Roy. But also remember that these foods can be enjoyed from time to time as well. For physical activity, we know that the key message is sit less, move more. And we know that it all takes a conscious effort to be more active in a society like we're all living in now, but every little helps, as they say. So it's very important that we try to embed activity in our daily routine. Well, environmental factors sort of links across different areas just now that we've looked at, and also to give support and encouragement to students and peers whenever possible. Physiological factors, importance of identifying hunger pangs and knowing when to stop as well. Lack of sleep particularly, I think there was a report just a couple of days ago as well, looking at how it has strong association with obesity. So it's important that we try to encourage students and peers to establish a good sleeping pattern. Well, the media, we can never underestimate the power of the media. So having support from trustworthy online blogs, and use web-based resources as well from trusted websites, and also trying to choose active gaming options as well. And particularly remember that nobody looks like models in the magazines, not often. themselves most of the time. So it's very important that we try to encourage students to think about these factors. So hopefully that creates a very interesting resource for you to talk to your students, identify the different areas of behaviour change. And we do have a nice resource included as part of your packs. It's a nice sort of grid showing how small changes can elicit big gains in the long run in terms of behaviour change. But if you require further copies, this is also available online to download. We've also got a very nice education resource called My Wellbeing. Not sure if any of you have come across that. It's on our Food Effective Life website, and it's under the 11 to 16 age area. If you just hover over the section, you'll be able to find it, and it's freely accessible. It provides an opportunity for students, users, to analyse their diet and activity choices for 1 day or 3 days. So they can put in their sort of dietary choices, and we've got some nice visual images as well as activity choices, so that after that they can sort of analyse what they've chosen, and there's some personalised feedback as well. And at the end, they can also pledge how to live well, looking at the 8 tips from the government and putting their own way of actually achieving this, and print this out in the future as well. So this will probably be a good classroom activity, looking at how they can change behaviour and potentially using some of the resources that I just covered as well. So hopefully you found that useful. For more information, you can always come visit our website, and I'll be around for questions if you've got any as well. Thank you very much.